What's goody? It's your host Jay Rose, as always, and there's some storylines going into the next NBA season that I'm very excited to see play out. Let's get into it. Over 90% of the people that watch my content are not subscribed, so if you're messing with the videos, please hit that sub button and the noti bell so you'll get notified every time I upload. But let's get back to the hoops. The number one most thing I'm excited for next season is Ja Morant's return, bro. When Ja Morant came back from his suspension last season for a couple of games, the Grizzlies looked awesome. Which is funny because they literally sucked the entire year. Up until that point, the Grizzlies were awful, and then when Ja went back out, they were awful again. They were obviously dealing with a lot of injuries. It was pretty much a lost season for the Grizzlies, but one good takeaway from that is that all the young players that usually would not get as big of an opportunity definitely got some time to develop and really come into their own in the NBA. Guys like Gigi Jackson, who I feel like wouldn't even really get a shot if it wasn't for the circumstances last year. They got Salty Aldama getting better as well. So coming back next season, you have these guys off the bench that you can use. Ja's coming back. You got Marcus Smart coming back. Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, Derrick Rose, hopefully off the bench, can give them some production. And I think the Grizzlies are going to have a great year. But even beyond that, I feel like Anthony Edwards has taken Ja Morant's literal spot in the league. Like the way that we looked at Ja a season or two ago is the way that people are looking at Ant now, and probably even more for Ant. I think people are definitely expecting Anthony Edwards to become like probably the best player in the world at some point. I think that's the expectation for a lot of people. I don't know if that's my expectation on him, but a lot of people, especially after last season, definitely gave him that same swag, that same look that we had with Ja. People are giving that to Ant, and they have these crazy expectations. So I'd love for Ja to come back and really show who he is, because I do think Ja is one of the best point guards and one of the best players in the NBA. And I feel like, I miss Ja. I miss Ja. I can do without some of the cringy stuff that he does, but on the court, just that energy that he brings and the energy that whole Grizzlies team brings when they're at full strength, I just think is something that you can't replace. And I definitely want to see Ja back on the court this season. I'm super hyped for that. Next up on my list is to see this Knicks team, bro, because I feel like the New York Knicks, especially when they're fully healthy next season, are going to be an issue. You have a lineup with Jalen Brunson at the 1, Mikal Bridges at the 2. You're going to have OG at the 3, Julius Randle at the 4, and Mitchell Robinson at the 5. That's a lineup that I think is going to beat a lot of teams. I think that's one of the best teams in the NBA for sure. And I think they actually do right now match up very, very well with the Celtics. And I think the moves that they made to really counterattack their wings is going to make a huge difference. They have a power forward that's still mobile and will be able to keep up. And I do think getting an upgrade at center would be something that they should look into, especially given Mitchell Robinson's injury history. You're not sure how much he's even going to be able to play. So I do think seeking out a center would be something that would be in their best interest, but it's not super duper end all be all for this team, because I feel like they made the great moves the last couple of seasons. They gave Jalen Brunson that contract. They just got Mikal Bridges. They traded for OG last season. So I feel like everything is really starting to come into place for New York for them to make a really big run and actually be contenders. I think last year they could have been contenders if they were healthy. Obviously things broke down, they didn't have all their players there, but this season, especially now that you can move Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo to the bench, that gives your bench unit a lot of firepower as well. So I just think the Knicks are going to be a super tough team to beat. They have the depth, they got the starters, they got the wings, they got the scoring, they got the defense. I think they do have everything on this team here. They got multiple guys that can shot create if everyone buys into the system, i.e. Julius Randle buys into this system. I think this team could be nuclear. I really do think this could be like a crazy team, and we can see them upset a team even like the Celtics if things were to go right in their favor. Next thing I want to see is Klay Thompson on the Mavericks, and I've been up and down on this topic because earlier when they wanted to trade for Klay Thompson, I wasn't a huge fan, but now that I'm really like stepping back and looking at what Klay Thompson needs to do to be effective on this team, it's not really much. Klay Thompson needs to have decent defense. We need him to play some defense, probably some point of attack defense. And I think with his offensive load being less, that his defense will rise up and be much better than it was the last couple of seasons with the Warriors. I also think on offense, your job is to catch open looks from Luka and Kyrie and knock down three-pointers. And that's literally what you've built your career off of doing, is knocking down three-pointers. Even last year, he shot a great percentage from three. Luka and Kyrie generate the most open looks out of any duo in the league. I'm almost 1,000% that this works. Klay, all you have to do is catch and shoot. And that's really what we were missing last year. So when you add a guy like that who's going to be shooting a high percentage, I think that offense is going to look absolutely insane when it starts clicking, and I'm really excited for that as well. I don't have as much to say about this because I do feel like it's just a plug and play thing, and I do want to see how Klay fits, but I'm really sure that Klay is going to be fine on this team. Speaking of Klay Thompson, I do want to talk about his old team for a little bit. I'm very interested to see what the Warriors are gonna do. I feel like they have to add at least something. They need another player. They've been in talks about Lauri Markkanen, but I'm not sure that they have enough for that. I feel like the Spurs have a better shot at getting Lauri. But even the return that they got for Klay Thompson, I wasn't too hype about. They replaced Klay with Buddy Hield, which I don't think is terrible. I feel like he'll fit into the Warrior system well, but I don't know in terms of how big that impact is going to be. And also, this team is just not really all that. It's not. They weren't all that last year. They didn't really get any huge additions this season. It's Steph, Buddy Hield, Jonathan Kuminga, Draymond Green. They still got Wiggs. They still got Moses Moody. I'm really not impressed with how this lineup looks. I'm not. They also lost Chris Paul for nothing. I feel like those are guys that you easily could have gotten players for. They did not want to get Zach LaVine. And I understand with the contract situation with Zach LaVine why you wouldn't want to get Zach LaVine, but if in turn you're going to end up with Buddy Hield, I'd rather go for Zach LaVine because the on-ball shot creation is much better with Zach. The athleticism is better with Zach, and he still has that amazing three-point shooting. Obviously, it's up in the air how great he comes back coming off of an injury. He hasn't had the best season with Chicago last year, so that obviously would be up in the air, but I feel like even Zach LaVine on a mid-season would be better than Buddy Hield, so that's kind of a miss there for me. Klay Thompson move baffled me. They got nothing in return, nothing. So I'm very interested to see how well they do. I feel like if this team sucks going into the trade deadline, that Steph Curry is gone. It did not help the Warriors' case that this year he got to play with LeBron James and Kevin Durant and Jason Tatum and Devin Booker and all these guys on Team USA. I think he's really looking at that and going like, damn, like I really want to play with some talent. I really want to not be in a losing situation. That's a guy that wants to win basketball games. That's a guy that wants to win games. He cried last season because of the turmoil that was going on this season, bro. On the middle of the court, he got so mad, so fired up, frustrated, he started weeping a little bit. I can't see him going through an entire losing season, especially if he's playing well and not requesting a trade. And that might be a hot take, but I just feel like Steph, if the Warriors can't get it to click next season, I feel like Steph might be gone. The last thing I'm excited to see next year is DeMar DeRozan on the Kings, because I feel like the Kings don't have the best spacing. Their best players all work in the mid-range paint area, and that was last year with De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. So now you add DeMar DeRozan, who is not a great three-point shooter. He can knock it down every now and then, but he's a mid-range and paint player. He's a slasher and a pull-up mid-range shooter. So I don't believe that the spacing is going to be amazing, and I wish that DeMar could have gone to somewhere with more spacing. I think he would have been crazy on the Warriors, where you have that space to drive. The lane's not going to be clogged up, and then you can pass it out to guys like Buddy. You can pass it out to guys like Steph. But all that being said, he does fit their play style. They run a lot. They're a really fast-paced team. Also, De'Aaron Fox is one of the most clutch players in the league. DeMar DeRozan is also one of the most clutch players in the league. Domantas Sabonis be top 10 in MVP voting. So they have a lot of firepower, and I think they have the potential to do some damage. I don't know the extent of how far that damage goes, but I'm very, very interested to see what the peak of that team is. I don't think it's going to be too high. I think the Kings are probably going to be a play-in team or just outside if they do make the playoffs. I'm not sure how amazing that roster is going to be. The Western Conference is stacked. I feel like under normal circumstances, if the Western Conference wasn't so stacked, they could be like a top 3 seed. But there's just too many teams right now. There's the Nuggets, who we got to get into another video about them. They got the Timberwolves, the Thunder, the Mavericks, the Lakers. There's just the Grizzlies are coming back, like I said earlier. So there's just a lot of firepower in the Western Conference. So I think the Kings are definitely going to have to come into their own and try to differentiate themselves if they want to get into a solidified playoff spot. But that's all the storylines that I'm excited about. Well, not all of them, but those are the top storylines I'm excited about going into next season. You tell me what you're excited about and in the comments down below, and I'll catch you on the next one.